Hello guys, welcome back. Hopefully you can all see and hear me. I've decided I need an assistant next time to get through all the tech. So hopefully you enjoyed that session with Paul Streeter. I thought it was fantastic. Really good tips and takeaways. So my next session, very kindly, I've got 3 individuals that have agreed to join. We're going to talk about exhibitors. 2 of them are from tech companies, and I've got a gentleman who runs the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. So just want to again thank my patrons: Hyve Group, Tarsus Group, 19 Group, SISO, Smart Digital, Rerusni, and Easyfairs. And after this session at 3 o'clock, we got a fantastic Stephen Murta, and at 4 o'clock, Debbie Lee from Benchmark Collective. So hopefully you stick around for those. For those of you that are watching on demand, welcome too. So without further ado, going to bring in my guests, and here they all are. Hopefully we can see everybody and hear everybody. I know Fiona, your internet connection is sometimes a bit up and down, but we'll crack on regardless. So say hello guys, just want to check that you can all hear me.
Hello.
Hi Dan, loud and clear.
Hello. So great, we can hear you. So I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves briefly, what you do and all that great stuff. So starting with you, Paul, can you tell the viewers what you're doing here?
Sure.
Who are you?
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. I'm chief exec for an organisation called Chamber of Commerce, Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. We're an accredited chamber. So we're one of 53 across the UK. Just to dispel any myths, sometimes when you hear about chambers of commerce, it's often thought we're looking after roundabouts and putting hanging baskets up on the local high street. Well, I'm responsible for 40 full-time members of staff. We run about 120 events, ranging from conferences at Microsoft HQ through to kind of round tables. So that's me. Very, very pleased to be here. I suppose we'll probably just say that the area that I represent is as far east as Heathrow, as far west as Swindon, and up into Banbury and Oxfordshire. So the Silicon Valley of the UK, we call it.
Yeah, the self-styled Silicon Valley of the UK.
That's right, exactly.
And Fiona.
Hi Dan, well, good afternoon. Hello. Can you hear me?
Lovely Fiona Jackson, who I've known for a good while. From Pyramid Analytics. So can you sort of bring to life who you are, who they are, what you do, and sort of, you know, all the shows that you exhibit at? Not everyone individually, of course, but just give us a flavour.
Well, I act as business development director for Pyramid Analytics. We are an analytics software company. The clue is in the name. I am a salesperson by background, sales director, whatever, and I have gone over to the lighter side of marketing and helping the UK and rest of the world. And one of the things I do is I book events. So I work quite closely with vendors, which is how I know Dan. And we do events right the way through from big expos, right the way down to very small, tight breakfast briefings, really just engaging with communities to try and feed those hungry salespeople with a pipeline so they can go sell the software.
Fantastic, thank you. And Mr. John Davey, some of the viewers from our old company Closer Still might recognise, has now gone client side. So bring to life what you're doing at the moment.
Hi Dan, thanks for the invitation. Nice to see you, Fiona and Paul. I'm John Davey. I look after partner sales for Avast, who many of you may know is a well-renowned cybersecurity company. Prior to that, as Dan quite rightly pointed out, I was at Closer Still Media, and prior to that at Tarsus Group. So I spent some 20 years in the exhibition industry, perhaps left at a time when I've left a little bit of indifference behind me with what's happening currently. So I'm now on the other side of things. So I'd like to think I have a slightly balanced opinion of how things work on both sides, but I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to contributing.
Sure, thank you. So without further ado, guys, we're gonna cover a few things today. We want to cover virtual events and some of the likes, dislikes, do's and don'ts of what you guys have been up to, both with your customers and with show organisers. and also internal events that you might have run as well. We're going to talk about a return to physical, how we feel about that, and the benefits of physical maybe versus virtual, and also how I guess sales teams should approach you at this time. I know, Paul, you're in a slightly different position, but again, talking about communication with your customers and that, or members, with regards to yourself. So let's start off with you, Fiona, actually, because I guess that as Pyramid Analytics, as a tech company, you've attended quite a few virtual events that you've maybe paid for to attend. Can you give us a flavour of ones that you've been on and sort of what bring to life what you've thought of them, the advantages, disadvantages, etc.?
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, Dan. I think as everybody was thrown into a state of shock almost this time last year. In fact, the last event we physically attended was a Closer Still Media event. And when everything got locked down, we had to pivot, flip, whatever terminology you want to use, very, very rapidly into the virtual mode. So as part of that, I think, and I genuinely feel very sorry for everyone watching this and the industry that you're in, because it is so challenging. It is so challenging because who knew how we would transpose having people at a physical event, talking to each other, getting to know each other, generating opportunities to sell to. How do you then pivot that into a virtual environment? So I think it was a huge challenge, and I think people have really stepped up, and we've all learned a lot. What I found was the platform changes were very challenging. So over the period of months, I have used Pathable, Swapcard, Vfairs, Incoff TV, Citrix, GoToMeeting, so you name it. And it was almost, another event, another day, another platform, please. And I think that was very challenging. And it was also very challenging because, salespeople by their very nature are chatty, social little creatures, and they want to get out there and see people and talk to people. And in a virtual environment, that's very, very hard to do. I think it's been challenging, but we have learnt a lot. And I think the positives are you get to see who's there, you get to see what people are attending, you get to see the sessions they're interested in. So your sales guys can make much more targeted, focused follow-ups. The downside is you don't get that kind of drive-by traffic, you don't get that interaction, and you don't get that ability to start, that bonding process with somebody. So they trust you, you like each other, and then you carry on the conversation to have a demo and a chat. So I think my final point on that would be the flip or the pivot into an environment where you've got a virtual exhibition area with virtual booths. Misnomer. I don't think that works at all. It hasn't worked for us. Whereas I think if you've got somewhere where you can store the content, where people go and find the information that they want to find, that does work very well.
Sure. Thank you. And I'll ask you about some specifics in a minute. Question to you, Paul. Obviously, a slightly different position because you're organising these events. But it'd be great to hear some of the feedback from your members in terms of some of the virtual events and digital offerings that you've put on over the last however long, 12 months, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, classically, chambers of commerce are a room to do business. Most of the interaction we've had over the years, we've got a legacy of 100 years of history of businesses coming together there, have been face to face. And so, as Fiona was just saying there, whatever you call it, we calibrate, we pivot, whatever it is, it's been a fundamental change for us as a business and for a lot of the businesses that we work with. And I'm actually impressed with how businesses generally have managed that process. I mean, we've got a lot of members who are either conference providers or hotels and so on, so they've been hit hard clearly. But in terms of the actual customer experience, in terms of the ability to build trust, to share the purpose of what it is you're looking to get together, I found the way that businesses have adjusted to that to be really positive. As an organisation, our reach has grown. We've really had to think hard about the skills we have within the business as well, and how we use those skills slightly differently. You can imagine if you've got 100 people that you're receiving, almost like a Ferrero Rocher moment where you're welcoming people and feeling, good food, good venue.
I'm going to use that Ferrero Rocher moment.
the ambassador's reception. I think.
At your age, you won't remember that. You won't remember.
No, of course I do.
Yeah. So it's been a fun change, but I think the learning we've taken from it is, and I'm sure we'll get into this, whatever it's going to look like when restrictions come about, I think we're going to see a mix of, and there's lots of different phrases, we're going to see a mix between what's most effective in reaching that audience. But headline is, our members are telling us that when restrictions allow us to do it, they want to get together. They want to pressure fest, and they want to build that face-to-face trust. So we're just trying to stay flexible at the moment. I think it's a key message.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, I think we've learned along the way, and John, being in your view, that virtual can deliver additional audience, maybe international, depending on, what show or organisation you run, that maybe a physical event couldn't and won't be able to go forward because of restrictions. So, John, can you bring to life the sort of events that Avast, I guess, used to go to physically, and then what they've been doing as an organisation maybe the last 6 to 12 months, and sort of the pros of that?
Yeah, sure. So, everyone talks about the, whether one is better or the other is better. And we have come to a very solid conclusion internally that it isn't obviously virtual and it isn't physical. It's both. It's a hybrid of both. And certainly we've seen that creating a community is possibly the most important thing. I mean, as a general rule for an event, your preparation should be the most important thing. You should understand who's going to go there. You should have a kind of a roadmap when you're at the show as to who you're going to visit. And so creating this community, having the preparation to go to both types of events is obviously the most important thing. Now, coming back to how Avast had been looking at things, of course, we haven't had that opportunity physically to go to events, so everything has to go online. Then leading towards Fiona's point about the online exhibitions and actual kind of having an expo and your own online booth, has it worked? I don't think it has, no. And I think there's a number of reasons why that hasn't worked. That is quite rightly the first point is a question of credibility, loyalty, trust, and being able to actually meet somebody. And when you can see physically their body language, surely there's going to be a higher level of engagement. And I think the second point, which relates to every single one of us, and perhaps will relate to some people who are plugged into this podcast now, Dan, but aren't really listening, and that is the concentration. It's the reality that people can sit for 7, 8, 9 plus hours a day with headphones in or headphones not in, but quite frankly, just looking at the screen all the time. So it's the interaction side of things and how long people can remain effective.
Sure. No, I absolutely agree with you. And I think, Fiona, it'd be interesting to understand if a salesperson is going to approach you now, let's just stick with virtual at the moment. What are the things that will attract you to a virtual proposition, given the learning that you've been through over the last 6 months or so?
I think it's adding value. It's adding value to help the salespeople engage, be it follow-ups on sessions, be it more speaker meet and greets. I think it's very challenging to try and offer in a virtual event one-to-one meetings.
Sure.
Because how do you qualify those? I think sometimes, and this is has happened, that we've signed a contract and we've been given n number of one-to-one meetings, and people have turned up, locked up, and the delegate is basically saying, well, I had to turn up because I was told if I attended the event, I had to sign up to X number of meetings. Well, that doesn't help my sales guys, and it becomes very frustrating.
Sure.
But I think one thing definitely for virtual is platform consistency. So that you're building that knowledge that if it's vendor X, then, oh yeah, they use that platform. I understand it. I know how to get around it, both from the sponsor's point of view and also the delegates attending. And from the sponsor's point of view, actually setting up the background information to be able to carry that forward from event to event to event, lightens the load on us in terms of building it, adding the content, and just doing the admin in the back end. I think another point I would make is don't offer every sponsor, oh yeah, you'll get all the lead scans, yeah, you'll get to know everyone who came, yeah, I'll give you all the people who attended. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have a customer of mine who I couldn't get hold of because I was phoning him from my office line rather than my mobile, and so he blocked me because he'd been to an event and he said he was getting hundreds of calls from every vendor. So be more targeted, offer more sessions where we can deliver targeted content as the sponsor, more speaker meet and greets, so we can then go from transmit to engage with the attendees, and then give us that information to be able to follow up. So yes, you get more money from us, but we get much better engagement for that money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, because I think we can become obsessed that, you know, exhibitors, all they want is data, but it needs to resonate, it needs to be targeted, specific, and there's no point in giving the same data to everybody. No. Because that's going to be, you know, that's not going to be helpful. Obviously, when you're at a show, the exhibitor themselves can then determine what data they take, whether they just scan everybody or just selective ones that they've had a conversation with. But I think sometimes you run the risk of maybe giving too much because that's what we think they want. Paul, same question to you in terms of sort of things that you've learned and what your members have said to you in terms of what they like on the platforms and things. Would you say that's similar, or?
Well, I think like a lot of companies, when you went through that adjustment of getting everybody working from home and just had to entirely kind of recalibrate, we probably tried to do too much, if you like. Fiona said there about scale, and I think one of the clearly the merits of going entirely virtual is that you can look to segment the information you're providing a little better. What that means for us is because our members tend to be organizations that are civically minded, so they will have a quite a clear sense of purpose about what it is that they, not just necessarily products and services they provide, but what it is that they want to be regarded as in the conversation. So then it's easier to then draw upon themes about what matters to those businesses most, and that's appealing. The way to divide those rooms, if you like, in that kind of way has worked really well for us. Yeah. There's still, I suppose, I mean, I'm showing my age, but I can remember Comdex. I went to Vegas in 2001.
You remember going to Vegas? You did it wrong.
I wasn't old enough to drink.
What would you give to go there now, hey?
Yeah. That's a different conversation.
There was that wow factor, that scale of knowing that you were in amongst a community of folks. There was that element of that vibrant atmosphere in around it, and you don't get that online. So we really focused more upon looking at how we customize the experience for each individual. Sure. And the feedback from that has been good, and there's been an element of kind of less is more with that as well, and just making sure that, as Fiona's saying, you've got, we call it, whether it's a link between, it's a thread in terms of the activities, a reason to carry on that conversation in between either exhibitions or events, because as John's saying, you close down your browser and you're into another session within 5-10 minutes. So you've got to find a way to keep folks engaged between that. That's probably the biggest takeaway with that.
Yeah, and people don't, thank you, and people don't, even like an event like this, not going to sit there all the way through. So the on-demand version, it's important that you understand how people consume it. John, I'm going to ask you specifically in terms of a return to physical events and what Avast are saying, and obviously only one company, but it'd be interesting to hear. Has this moment in time given them appreciation of what physical could do, because maybe they haven't got the leads pipeline that they would have had before?
Yes, it has. There's no question that as a commercial organization, people want to get out, people want to see customers, and the company wants to operate at the highest level it can. So everybody from somebody who's organizing events, to somebody who's responsible for content, to selling whatever product it may be, to marketing it, is absolutely keen, chomping at the bit to get out and go and see people. So there absolutely is a demand to get back to physical events. I think. Sorry,
yes,
please.
Go.
And I think to bring in the virtual side with the physical events here is to lead as to perhaps we've had in the last year probably as much development forced upon us as probably would have taken perhaps 5 or 6 years to happen.
Sure.
The way I see things are developing is probably going to go along the lines that it's far more community based, and you end up having, in effect, paying a subscription model for an event as a service. By that, I don't mean that you're actually turning up for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, however long the event's taking place, flogging yourself for those times, and then you follow up afterwards. I think that organisations, and certainly Avast, we've discussed this internally quite considerably, is we're always looking to have access to the community, to have access to people who would have been at an exhibition several months beforehand, who we didn't at the time need or have the opportunity to make contact with.
Sure.
So therefore, that brings up this whole principle and the very natural word we talk about: face-to-face, physical and virtual, and then it's the obvious hybrid. So when people say, what is the best model? The answer is it's a mixture of everything. There's a place for all of it. The value of the face-to-face is really to meet the bigger prospects, is to course a floor, is to follow up these conversations, and quite often to close deals out. But there has to be this principle of a service between when physical events take place. And the value for an exhibition organizer of that will be that the churn of exhibitors would be far, far lower as a result of them all being constantly engaged. The value to an exhibitor would be far, far higher, which justifies the prices that can be charged. Because certainly people are not seeing what the value is of buying a virtual exhibition booth versus a physical one, as Fiona aspired to earlier on. This would be a way of actually realizing some value, holding on to a customer, and actually moving together forward with the times.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. And a lot of the bigger show organisers that I've spoken to absolutely now understand the digital strategy before or between the events is incredibly key. And gone are the days where you think, right, I'm going to rebook that one, and actually I don't want to speak to them again because I don't want to remind them that they rebooked, or they might say they don't want to do it or something like that. Actually, it's better to front it and come up with a package of opportunities. So Fiona, would you agree that if someone's approaching you at the moment, that you want to see a bit of consistency in their solutions, so more long term, or is it just about getting back to physical? What's your view?
I think that as a company, we're very cautious currently about booking physical, although in the news today about the vaccine and the not only protecting you, but the efficacy of protecting other people brings good cheer. But I think, it's that consistent approach, that it's not just signing up for one event in isolation. It's working with the event vendor as a partner, so that we help add value to your event by delivering good content and building up that content. So we build a picture of what we're doing as an organization, and we are getting from the vendor supporting that content, support how we approach the market and how we're actually delivering that, be it physical or virtual. I think it's as John rightly says, it's let's use both, because soon we'll have both in our armory. But let's not look at it as, oh, I need this many people to fill my floor for this event, right? Who it is, so long as I fill the stands. It's building that partnership. And I think one of the things that the last 12 months has enabled us to do, from my perspective, Pyramid, working with all the vendors that we work with, is actually build a better relationship with them and talk more about the content and bounce ideas, and to try and help make the event as good as it possibly can be, both for the sponsors, but for the delegates, but also for the people hosting the event, because then everyone goes away happy. And the one thing I would also say about that continual outreach and ability to provide the sponsors with touch points to your communities that as vendors you target to attend your events is, if you think about the fashion industry, they used to have spring, summer, autumn, winter. That was it. 2 shows a year. Now they have cruise, capsule, this, that, and the other, because they also recognize that they had to keep in touch with the people that they're trying to sell to. It can't just be an ad hoc. It's build that relationship is what I'd say. Spend a bit more time investing with your vendor. Sure.
So essentially you're saying, look, you've told me who you want. This is who we've got. We think there's a match. And these are the ways that we can get you in front of them. It could be an event. It could be digital, virtual. It could be both or all of them. So that is a more sort of holistic, collaboration. Would you agree with that, Paul? And I guess when you're speaking to new members at the moment, so I guess you're always trying to get new members on board.
Yeah, it's a much more consultative approach.
Yeah.
And actually, that's an opportunity. So if you've got good skill sets, good brand within your business that can take your customers through a proper conversation about what it is they need, that they'll be willing to invest in that. It's not going to be, and it'll also need to be, I suppose, given a great deal of confidence around what else is happening in the marketplace. There's not going to be, at what point is there, I can't see there just being a flag that's raised at some point to say, right, it's ready, start, go. The exhibition industry, there's going to be judgments to make. There's going to be certain industries that look to enter that market first. So there's going to be a lot of consultation. There's going to be a lot of relationship building that happens through that, and it'll be based upon trust. And I absolutely agree with Fiona that in the industry we're talking about here, the winners are likely to be those that are able to look at a whole raft of solutions and not perhaps just the traditional booth space that we're all familiar with. So, but keep confidence in the backdrop that human nature, the nature of the businesses that we are working with, they want to get back together.
Yeah. What, you don't want to do this?
It's brilliant.
No, we're loving this, loving it.
Yeah, John, thank you for that. Paul, John, what conversations are going on at Avast at the moment from an event perspective? So just don't sugarcoat it. It'd be good to know what they're saying really, and whether they think, right, well, actually we've written off the rest of this year, or only book this if there's a complete clause I can get my money back. What sort of conversations are they having with organisers or internally?
Obviously, there's a number of events that we're committed to in advance, so we've kind of honoured our obligations and tried to have obviously some sympathy for event organisers, and as Fiona's pointed out, as partners as well. We work out that it's a two-way thing, this, and there needs to be a far more personal relationship between vendor companies and also organisers, whatever the circumstances, pandemic or no pandemic. Basically, we want to get out there and we want to be physically seeing people. When is that going to happen? Well, to give you some insight as to when we think our offices are going to reopen, our head office is in Prague. We have offices all around the world, the US, London, Germany, all over the world.
Yeah.
We are not anticipating anything until probably around July time. And that's possibly an indication of when we're going to get some form of people returning to work. Now, I know there are dribs and drabs of people who are going into offices at the moment, but the reality is that I don't think this is coming anytime soon.
Are you on?
I'm sorry?
Oh, don't know.
I think Fiona's frozen. I hope I didn't upset her there. So, these are the indicators, and there's a natural break in proceedings when it comes to business taking place in Europe. Not quite so much in the UK, but certainly Europe, and that is that things tend to close down a little bit over the months, certainly from the exhibition side of things, getting into July and August. So therefore, it would suggest to me that the obvious window is going to be September time when things start getting some semblance of normality. Thank
you, because actually, whilst Fiona, I think, tries to dial back in, we've got a question for you here, John, from Khadija. It's a very broad question, but what do you think the future of business events is in 21? Do you see it just maybe it's all virtual or physical or hybrid, or some of the stuff we just spoke about?
That's a great question. As I say, generally stretches nicely across everything we're talking about, and thanks for that, Khadija. So I think, as I say, we're going to see some return to normality with smaller scale events, perhaps starting around September time. I think we'll, all things being well in terms of vaccines and obviously the well-being of people around the pandemic, and also corporate restrictions being lifted, because some companies will be very cautious with things here. I think perhaps towards the end of the year, we perhaps might see, in the later months, maybe November and early December, we might see a little bit more volume of exhibitions. Sure. My honest opinion is I don't think we're going to get back to, when you talk about things like Mobile World Congress and events of that kind of size, and Drupa printing exhibitions, I don't know that we're going to see anything like that happening perhaps until 2022. So therefore, I would suggest that people need to persevere with their online strategies and use all facilities and platforms that are available to them until we can actually get back to choosing what we can use.
Sure, and I think some of those events are going to go, well, they already have gone regional. so rather than international. Fiona, good to have you back.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah. So, open question for you, Fiona. If I approached you and said, look, we've got this fantastic package. We start in March. The show's in September. I can give you some digital activity. It ends with a stand and some other stuff. There's a COVID clause where if the show's moved, we either give you the money back or you can move within 6 months or whatever. Are you having those conversations? Are you prepared to have those conversations at the moment?
I am. Absolutely. I think, we have to move on. We have to plan that things will get back to normal, new normal. And we also have to offer some hope to those poor salespeople who are desperate to go and talk to other people in person. But as you say, it's heavily caveated with an understanding and a contractual obligation. If the physical event can't go ahead, then there's nothing to pay. Sure. If that event gets moved within 6 months, I think we also have to be aware that that 6 months might take us into a new financial year for somebody booking. So that could give a problem. So it's not just a blanket move it to 6 months. And I think we also do need to be, I think as John was saying, on a regional basis, we need to understand that there might need to be some contractual get-out clause, for want of a better word, for people who have travelling restrictions. So I think it is a case of, we need to work together and understand. Sorry, Dan.
No, it's okay.
That we really want to do it. We want to do it. We want to book stuff. As Paul and John are both saying, we want to get out there and do it. But we can't afford. I could not afford to put my company in a position where we have to pay for something that we're just not getting anything for. And the best, if you like, negotiations that we've had over the past 12 months have been where big exhibitions, they've said, like, we understand you're not having the stand, so we're not going to charge you for the stand. We're just going to charge you for your sponsorship package, and we're going to build in all this additional value with content and meetings after the event and so on and so forth to build out that value.
Fine. So as long as they're flexible, let me ask you a direct question. Actually, have you actually booked a physical show recently or not for the future?
I have.
You have. There you go. Fantastic.
Go me.
Yeah, good.
But it's in Germany, so whatever. It's in Germany.
Out of interest, when is that show taking place? Out of interest.
Okay, so I actually have one booked in July.
Okay.
With a complete get-out clause of absolute 100% refund. And I have one booked in December, which if it can't go ahead physically, then it will pivot to virtual.
Cool. Okay, well, that's good to hear. It's good for people to hear that, you're prepared to actually put pen to paper with the right clauses. Paul, in terms of your planning of your own physical events, are you still in a wait and see mode? Have you, I don't know, put down some markers with venues in principle? What are the venues telling you actually? How are they playing ball with you?
Well, what Fiona's just shared there is really interesting because, and also your point about regional events, because these are really the kind of practical points that our policy team at the Chamber are taking to government about why you need a roadmap. Why is it that businesses need more information about what the lifting restrictions is likely to be at home and in terms of our global links as the virus numbers start to drop. And that's, you just spelled out practically, because that'll naturally correlate to how many inquiries you get and how many you're able to convert into contracts. So that's important for me to understand. Sure. For us as an organisation, very similar to what John's sharing there, in terms of timescale. Naturally, speaking to our members who are still looking at first question about how do they get their employees safely back into their workplaces. That will then be a trigger to actually, well, then how do I go out and build trust, face-to-face connections and close deals? So when we understand what that's going to look like in terms of the pace of getting employees back into the workplace, how social distancing restrictions are started lifted, that will naturally then lead on to more of the kind of business development, perhaps travel opportunities as well. And that's likely to be from September onwards, I suspect. But it's uncertain. It is a guess, and of course we all want it to happen quicker. It'll be based around how quickly the vaccines are rolled out.
Yeah.
The point you make about the it's almost like the equivalent of a staycation, isn't it, in terms of the exhibition industry, bringing it back to the UK. We have more certainty around what the UK. You see the vaccine wars that are happening at the moment. So the pace of recovery in Prague or the pace of recovery in Schiphol or elsewhere, it's not going to be clearly a level playing field. So for those of you that are focused around the UK, which is the area clearly we're focused on as a network, that's why we're starting with our local MPs, local politicians with Westminster, because we want to understand what the UK is going to look like. Yeah. So I think you're going to see 2 or 3 different tracks in terms of perhaps when customers are going to be looking to attend UK-based regional events face-to-face, and those that are perhaps, as John was saying, the big Mobile Congress and other big events on the continent.
Thank you, Paul. I've got a question. I guess a question here. Maybe Fiona, if you can have a look at this, it's more a statement. But do you think this period will change the way that you then, or led you to change the way that you would exhibit at a show? I'm not saying you ever just did sort of, just scan all badges, but is there now going to be a change in what you do on site, and how can organisers help you with that?
I think that's a really good question, Dan. I think the takeaways from this. Yeah, go you, Daniel.
I think it's a very good question from Lee Alley.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll take it.
Actually, yes. Sorry, Lee. I should have attributed you. I was just building up Dan's part. He did invite me. Sorry. Thanks. So Lee, excellent question. I think as vendors we need to think a little bit more, or as sponsors, whatever you want to term us, as companies attending your event, and I think what this has shown us is doing more preparation before an event. So some blog posts, some attributed outreach campaigns that we do with our prospects to tell them about the event we're attending, your event. And I think absolutely targeting better who we want to approach and who we want to talk to. But that would require, in a physical world, us knowing who is going to be there.
Sure. And
being able to have that matchmaking ability to actually have those meetings to meet the people, because as we've all said, in a virtual world, you can see the names, you can see who's attending. Whereas in a physical environment, people aren't walking around with name badges, so you don't know who they are. So I think there has to be a little more conversation about that to help the sponsors work with the exhibitor organizer to try and do that matchmaking.
Sure, thank you. And John, same to you, I guess. We've run events, and it's sometimes a struggle to try and agree how these hosted buy sessions work or matchmaking. But do you feel now that in this environment, if people are going to, take the effort and possible risk, that they need to meet the right people on site, sort of when they want to meet them?
I absolutely agree, and referring directly to Lee's question about the culture of just scanning a badge and then are we okay? Just scanning a badge and there's no real interactive engagement. Well, you see, this seems to be a danger of us as a generation. I say us as a generation, perhaps the generation of the technologies around us, in that so often people hide behind a particular method of contacting somebody. Nothing wrong with using the top technology to research things, but there is no substitute for proper engagement face-to-face. Scanning a badge does not include making a proper engagement with somebody. It's a lazy approach from whether it's salesperson, persons on a stand for a vendor, or whether it's actually people visiting a stand and just taking a business card. So much so that many companies actually don't physically have business cards to encourage this engagement.
Yeah.
So coming back to your point, people need to grasp the opportunity. They need to get back to a little bit of old-fashioned basics of pressing the flesh, shaking hands, or at least waving from a meter away, whatever the new norm's going to be, and actually engaging in a proper conversation and qualifying things. Then when that happens, suddenly the vendors are going to get a little bit more value of the money they spent in an exhibition to be there. And certainly the people visiting it are going to go away being a bit more fulfilled with a sales funnel of some leads that are certainly at least a bit pre-qualified. So,
Sure.
yeah, people are going to take the risk from it even more so now than ever. When economies everywhere need a boost, the industry needs a boost, the venues need a boost, the organisers need a boost, and people absolutely have to make the biggest impact they can and the most from meeting with people.
Sure. I need a boost. We all need a boost. So, Victoria has commented on your
Thank you, Victoria.
statement about booking events. I mean, in all seriousness, you know, show organisers, this sort of stuff just really helps. It just gives so much confidence to people that there is a future in what we do, and to actually hear it from someone that's spending money at events is really important. So you've done some good work here. Guys and girls, thank you so much. It's been a fascinating session. I appreciate, and Paul coming on board quite late in the day, I appreciate it. And if there's anyone out there that might be relevant for you to be a member, what sort of members are you looking for? How does it work?
Well, we're based around a region, so
sure.
You've got a whole cast of folks here, from about across all of Europe and beyond. So if you're based west of Heathrow, give me a shout on it.
Okay. I was trying to help you there. John, thank you so much. Fiona, thank you so much. Someone else has put here, John. So there you go. Look, everyone's loving your work, team. And we've also got one for you, Paul, as well. I absolutely agree with you. So not to leave you out. So thank you so much. I'm going to pop you in the green room, and then I'm going to talk to the audience about what's coming next.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
So hopefully that was you found that an interesting discussion. Next up, we have Stephen Mercer, the exhibition guy. That's at 3 o'clock. He's going to talk about finding new exhibitors, selling multiple objectives on one place at one time, and the importance of educating your exhibitors to increase retention. The good news is I won't be on that, so Stephen's going to fly solo. Good news for you, that is. Debbie Lee at 4 o'clock, Benchmark Collective. Why it's important to include Rebook in your 2021 sales strategy. So stick around. We will be back in around 15 minutes.